We are on textbook page 8, and this video is an extension of the previous video. The questions at the top of page 8 are just an extension of page 7. So let's go ahead and read those real quick. Reflect number 1, analyze relationships. Morning Glory Stream is 7 feet below sea level. What number represents the elevation of Morning Glory Stream? Now, if you went back to this information right here, Morning Glory Stream is not on this table. We could add Morning Glory to this table if we wanted to. Where would that be? So if I just went back to the question here, there's a really important key. It says that Morning Glory is 7 feet below sea level. And that word below indicates that the number is below 0. And the numbers that are below 0 are negative. So what number represents the elevation of Morning Glory Stream? It's going to be negative 7. Next question. Explain how to graph the elevation of Morning Glory Stream on a number line. Well, what we should have learned from before was the positive numbers were always to the right of 0. The negative numbers are to the left of 0. So how I would graph negative 7 would be 7 spaces, or 7 spots, to the left of 0. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move on to the Explore activity. So I will move up. And this Explore activity actually requires that we learn a couple new words here, opposites and integers. So let's go ahead and read this. We'll talk about these terms. And then you're going to have a chance to make a number line if you so choose. And then we'll answer some questions. Okay? So Explore activity 2, opposites. Two numbers are opposites if on a number line they are the same distance from 0, but on opposite sides of 0. For example, 5 and negative 5 are opposites. 0 is its own opposite. So let's go back to this line right here. I'm going to highlight some stuff and we're going to talk about this. 5 and negative 5 are opposites. We're going to talk about why those are opposites. They're already graphed on the number line. 5 and negative 5. Why are those opposites? Well, a lot of kids identify them as opposites because they both have a 5. One's positive, one's negative. But the definition has to do with how far it is from 0. For example, positive 5 is how many spaces from 0? Well, if you measure from here to here, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces from 0. And if you measure going the other direction from 0 to negative 5, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces from 0. Now, a lot of kids might want to say that that's 5 negative spaces. But a space, whether I'm moving to the right or to the left, is a space. And so since they're the same distance from 0, they're opposites. Now the next line defines integers. Integers are the set of all whole numbers, and they're opposites. So let's talk about what an integer is. Let's go to our number line. Integers are all the whole numbers. That's the first definition. Integers are all the whole numbers. Whole numbers are things like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Keeps going, but there's a nice sample to start. Also pay attention to the fact that 0 is a whole number. And then it says they're opposites. Well, let's go look over here at 1. I'm going to kind of hover above 1. What is the opposite of 1? Well, it's negative 1. What is the opposite of 2? It's negative 2. What is the opposite of 3? It's negative 3. Negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. So this number line right here shows all the integers. Integers are positive numbers, 0, and negative numbers. And that's definitely something you're going to want to commit to memory. Okay? What it does not include is things like decimals, fractions, that kind of stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the questions. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read these directions with you, and then I'm going to point out to you that there is a picture in the videos folder of the number line that you have an option to make. It says, on graph paper, use a ruler or straight edge to draw a number line. Label the number line with each integer from negative 10, that will be on the left, to positive 10. Fold your number line in half so that the crease goes through 0. Numbers that line up after folding the number line are opposites. After you make this number line, I want you to answer these questions. Now would be a good time to hit pause or just stop the video, and then when you resume, you're ready to answer the questions. Question A reads, use your number line to find the opposites of 7, negative 6, positive 1, and 9. I could actually use this number line right here to show a couple of those opposites. I can't quite do 7, but I could do -6. I'm going to go identify -6 and put a dot right here. And if I counted from -6 to 0, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. And the other number that is 6 spaces from 0 would be +6. I guess I kind of accidentally skipped 7. I just can't use the number line for that. What I think I'll do here instead is just use my common sense. The opposite of +7 would be -7 because it's the same distance from 0 on the number line. The opposite of -6 would be +6. The third number is +1. +1 is to the right. -1 would be one space to the left of 0. The last one, +9, the opposite of that is -9. I should have noticed that the opposites are all of the same digits, but with the opposite sign. Question B reads, how does your number line show that 0 is its own opposite? So if you take your number line and you fold it in half at 0, 0 would fold back on top of itself. So you could either say that 0 lines up with itself, or you could say that 0 folds on top of itself. Remember that. Here, let's go ahead and finish this answer and then I'll make sense of it. 0 folds on top of itself. Remember this part right here? I'll go back to the reading. Numbers that line up after folding the number line are opposites. Since 0 folds on top of itself, that means 0 is its own opposite. All right, question. What is the opposite of 3? Some kids misread this, but I'm going to point out what it says. What is the opposite of the opposite of? So there's two opposites there. So if I took out part of that question, if it just said what is the opposite of 3, well, what is the opposite of 3? The opposite of 3 would be -3. But then it says the opposite of that. Well, what's the opposite of -3? It's back to 3. So believe it or not, it's almost a trick question. The opposite of 3 would be itself 3. All right, let's go ahead and check out the bottom of the page. And then we'll be done with this page. Reflect. Question 3, justify reasoning. Explain how your number line shows that 8 and -8 are opposites. There's different ways to describe this. One way would be you could say 8 and -8 are the same distance from 0. So that's one way you could write it. Or you could say that they fold on top of each other. 8 and -8 fold on top of each other. And if I wanted to follow up with that and say, well, why do they fold on top of each other? Well, they're the same distance from 0. Since 0 is the center, when you fold them in half, 8 and -8 are each 8 spaces from 0, so they would fold on top of each other. Question number 4. Explain how to use your number line to find the opposite of -6. Now this might be a somewhat lengthy explanation, but I would say this. I'll try to be semi-concise here. So I'm going to ignore the fact that it says the opposite of, and I'm just going to find the opposite of. So I would start with the opposite of -6 is +6. Since the question says opposite of, you then have to find the opposite of positives, which is -6. So it's the second question in a row we got like this, where it's kind of a trick. When it reads opposite of, I'll highlight here. When it reads opposite of, and they give you a number, it actually the answer ends up being that same number. But the key there is that it said opposite of. So you find the opposite, then you go back and find the opposite of again, which is the original problem. All right, well, good job. We're done with page 8.